Today, I'm going to talk about how foster parenting, starting at the age of 26, was one of the best decisions of my life. And for those who are curious about the backdrop for today's video, I am currently in the island of Zir, Croatia. So, for those who are curious, I am currently traveling on my way on a pilgrimage to Medjugorje. To those of you who are Catholic, you might actually recognize that site. That said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the substance of why I have come to the conclusion, the decision that foster parenting really was the best decision of my life. My name is Derek. I'm from a small town in Idaho, and I took pride classes for foster parenting when I was 25. And by the time I started foster parenting, I was 26. I mostly only took in older boys and had almost continually had at least one child in my home for the 3.5 years following. Over the 3.5 years I foster parented, I was able to help a total of 18 children. Of those 18 children, 5 of them only stayed in my home for a night or two. These are children I temporarily watched over for the weekend until a social worker could take the case on Monday and get them in a more suitable home, which typically meant a home that was close to the school they were already attending, or a family better able to attend to disabilities such as autism. 4 children stayed less than a month. Other than one, which was respite care for a week, these were very difficult children who nobody else would take. 2 of them went to a facility in another state as soon as health and welfare could finish the process of them being accepted. And 1 of them went home to the biological parent at the dismay of the social worker. 9 children stayed in my home for at least a month or longer. The longest I had a youth in my home was 14 months. Of these kids and youth who stayed longer than a month, some left after they turned 18. Others were able to return home. Some went to a facility because of serious problems, and a few went to a different foster home. Before getting farther into my story, I want to thank all of you who have chosen to watch this video. The world needs more people like you, who have the desire and the heart to help youth. In this video, I hope to convey that in my desire to help youth, the youth have ultimately helped me, making the decision to foster parent one of the best decisions of my life. My background, which led me to desire to foster parent, is complicated. Over most of my adult life, I've recognized children and youth easily become emotionally attached to me and I to them. Although I don't fully know the reason for this, I attribute part of it to the fact that they easily captivate my attention. I notice this doesn't happen with many adults. They tend to ignore children who are doing everything they can to get it. As a result, I seem to stand out in the mind of the child, and they want to bring me into the activities of their life, developing the subsequent emotional bond easily and effortlessly. As beautiful as this ease of developing an emotional bond might seem on the surface, it has become a great source of pain and suffering in my life. In 2016, while living a missionary life in Tijuana, Mexico, under the support of the missionary oblates of Mary Immaculate, I discovered a 7-year-old child whom I had developed a bond with change his behavior in a way that was obviously sexualized. Searching for answers, including with the help of a professional psychologist who worked for the church, it was discovered that older pubescent boys, all brothers and neighbors to this child, were the source of the sexual abuse. I still remember, while the whole process of investigation was underway, that whenever I visited this child in his home, and I then had to leave, he would start crying, and I felt my heart completely torn in two. I felt like I was his father, and in that moment, I it felt as though I was abandoning my own son. This is not the only experience in the time leading up to foster parenting where I have felt like the father of a child, but it is the most prominent. These feelings of fathership towards children put me at odds with what I have felt was my life vocation, to become a Catholic priest. As a priest, not only would I have to abandon the idea of having a wife and a physical family, but I became fully aware of the tendency of many priests to distance themselves from children and youth as a result of the prior sex scandal in the church. I find myself personally opposed to this mentality. I personally consider this to be a stance that portrays a lack of interest and perhaps even an indifference towards children and youth. Since indifference and lack of interest in the lives of children helps allow child abuse to go unnoticed, I do not believe this is in any way a good solution for priests to avoid the evils of the past. This view was formed from my experience with the abused child in Tijuana, but it was confirmed in my experience as a foster parent. Time and time again, foster children, both the little ones as well as the teenagers, open up to me and shared about their abuse. Children share their toughest experiences with people who show that they care deeply, not with people who show lack of interest and would likely disbelieve anyway. As a man, I feel obligated to protect those who are more vulnerable than me. And children affected by abuse are the most vulnerable of all. Although I had entered seminary to become a priest after my experience in Tijuana, I chose to leave after a year, not because of my desire to father children, but for another reason. I wanted to learn Arabic for the purpose of mission and later return. But having made efforts to learn Arabic, which includes spending 2.5 months in Egypt, I noticed children who were sleeping on the ground with no parents providing for them. The feeling I had of abandonment and helplessness, as I had to continue walking past them, knowing there was nothing I could do, solidified my desire to be a foster parent. In the 6 years since I left seminary, I have done many things besides travel to learn Arabic and foster parent. I have also completed my bachelor's degree in philosophy and have now completed my master's degree in theology. I have also been working on getting my private pilot's license. But of everything I have done over the past 6 years, I consider foster parenting to have been my greatest achievement. The difficulty of obtaining a master's degree or learning to fly is nothing compared to the difficulty of bringing challenging children into my home, time and time again for 3.5 years. It wore me down having police at my home, taking a child to the hospital because of a suicide attempt, talking to the principal, going to an expulsionary hearing, visiting the juvenile detention center, being investigated by the Department of Health and Welfare over every small accusation that someone might make, and many more things besides that. Frequently, it felt like I was doing no good. And even worse, sometimes it felt like I was doing my own community harm when the children I brought into my home did others harm. The town I lived in was small, and the majority of the children who came to my home were from 30 or more miles away. An example of one case which churned my stomach more than most was an older teenager who demonstrated inappropriate behavior towards elementary grade girls. Although I may not be his biological dad, I felt shame as though I were. But amidst the negatives, there was hope. I sometimes got to see the children after they left my home, and I had the opportunity to show them that I didn't just care because I was paid to do it as a foster parent, but because I chose to and wanted to. One 18-year-old who I tracked down several years after he left my home told me he was struggling to understand why I cared about him. I visited him even though he was 2 hours' drive from me, and I did what I could to help him get a foothold in life. It was rewarding to me to see that I could teach him that caring about others adds value to life. As much as I labor to better the lives of these youth and children, they ultimately have blessed me more than I could ever possibly bless them. I have been through so many difficult places and circumstances in life, condensed in a short 3.5 years, that I have become emboldened with a confidence that I can handle anything that life throws at me. Working with these youth has given me a more mature view of God and our relationship with Him as disobedient children. These children have also blessed me materially. I bought a house specifically for foster parenting after dealing with noise complaints in my apartment. After 4 years, I sold the house for almost double what I bought it for. I believe this demonstrates that when you sacrifice for God, God pays you back. This money has allowed me to not work for a year leading up to my ultimate decision to return to seminary, which I am planning to return in the fall of next year. I have gone from stressful experience to stressful experience, and now I feel relief. Being able to fill my life with good experiences, including travel and pilgrimages, and most notably, at a time when the world is suffering from inflation. I consider this to be a blessing from God. Since foster parenting, I have noticed I have changed as a person, and I have changed in the way I interact with others. I have become more aware and attentive to the needs of others, especially the emotional needs. I have become more forgiving and patient. I am more proactive with others, including how I try to attend to their needs and being less reactive. I am by no means perfect in how I do these things, but I am far better than I was before I became a foster parent. I have known enough priests to know that I can sympathize with the struggles of families more than most of them can, simply by way of my experience. I have had to fight to get a child in the car for church, and fought to keep children quiet once there. I know the challenges of parenting firsthand, as opposed to being an observer. Experience changes perspective, and perspective increases patience. I've been blessed to have more experience than most priests have with family life, and I look forward to taking this with me into the priesthood, God willing. Having foster parented has added incredible value to my life, and it has blessed me with knowledge, confidence, and experience that has permanently altered and benefited the course of my life. Thanks for watching. I hope the challenge doesn't dissuade those of you with the greatest hearts from doing your part for the abandoned children of the world, but rather, I hope you can rise to the occasion to do your part. God bless.